sights, sounds, and information just for you from your friends at ASM.
Welcome to the turn of night.
Standing out has never been my thing. Hell, even when every kid was supposed to get an award, they'd be short a trophy. The teacher would gush over the other students' appearance during picture day, but simply say, "Oh, get in line," with an unenthusiastic tone when they saw me. By the time high school rolled around, it didn't get better. I once needed stitches after a science class injury, but the faculty were more concerned over a popular girl who had gum in her hair and congratulating the star quarterback on getting his license. If I ever said anything to my own parents, they'd simply say, "Yeah, deal with it," while my own father handed money to my cousins and my mom dismissed it as my imagination. I once went to a party where the cops busted in the door. I got up and walked out. No one noticed me. At least there was one benefit to flying under the radar. When I grew up, I worked different jobs. They'd put us in groups, and I'd say hello to my coworkers, but the cliques were as bad as high school. I lived my entire life feeling secondary, in many cases non-existent. I'm not angry, a conspiracy theorist, or an incel creep. Quite the opposite. I've had some great relationships, they just don't last, and I've made peace with it. Even among friends, I'm not really in. At the same time, my life isn't constant drama, more like a fairly consistent line. My perspective definitely changed about a year ago. I was getting coffee and a sandwich at a bodega near my house one afternoon. The owner said, "Hello, new to the area?" even though I'd been going there every week for a year. Harmless enough, and the coffee and deli sandwiches were really good. It was an early spring day, slight chill, but the sun was out. Strolling along with my takeout, I headed to a park bench. As I sat, the sounds of cars' brakes screeching to a stop caught my attention. The driver jumped out and angrily opened the passenger door. He dragged out a nice-looking woman who was wearing club-style clothes. She was weeping and seemed as though she was somewhat less than sober. He called her a lot of awful names and even glanced over at me. Lucky for me, I have that unnoticeable thing going on. I recognized him, though. He was a realtor and a rumored member of some local organized crime. Forcing her along, I saw him lead her to an old building that he owned, conveniently enough, and aimed to sell to developers. She was obviously hurt and would probably have done worse to her as they entered the building. I left the bench along with my lunch and, against my own will, felt myself following them. I should say this. I once walked into a local shop that was owned by an old mystic type. He would close his eyes and tell you the number of the bus going by or predict next week's weather better than any meteorologist. But when I walked in the door, he was startled and even a bit annoyed that he didn't sense that I was there. I opened the door to the dusty building. The arrogant bastard didn't even think to lock it. I followed up the stairs and heard the woman cry out when I reached the 8th floor. He was screaming at her and called her worthless. I reached the sunroom and saw her faint and fall to the ground. He continued berating her until he saw me. Demanding to know who I was and what I was doing there, I stood my ground. He reached for his jacket pocket as he called me a joke and rushed towards me. Sidestepping him was easy as he was clearly flustered, and his complete disregard for me did the rest. And with that one simple move, he tripped and headed straight out the long window, 8 stories down, to his imminent death. I quickly scanned the room and noticed some work gloves and a pencil and paper. I put the gloves on, and I scribbled, "I hate my life," on a sheet and tossed it down to his lifeless body. I grabbed the young lady and carried her out. Once she was safe, I ditched the gloves and took a stance across the street where I wouldn't be noticed. From a distance, and an hour and a half later, I saw the young lady get into a car. A half hour after that, I saw the police and emergency services arrive. Call it intuition or whatever you like, but I knew that no one was looking for me. No cameras picked me up. Nobody saw me go into the building. As I walked along the street, I saw the old mystic. He simply nodded to me with a knowing look. I decided to go back to the bodega and get a new sandwich and coffee. As I walked up to the counter, the owner looked out at the commotion and said, "Wow, what a crazy day. I already heard that guy killed himself." Turning his attention back to me, he asked, "What can I get you? Are you new to the area?"
The lights are on as the evening shadows are creeping in. Hopefully, you won't get caught in the turn of night.